State with Jack Lloyd, where philosophy matters.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Jack Lloyd here. I am excited to be back, hanging out, and doing a little bit more on the Isom fan theory thinking here. I'm going to be taking a look at Isom and an intriguing potential connection with a historical character named Isom Dart. So I'm going to be looking at that in just a second. And a quick reminder, everybody, if you want me to potentially see your comments, YouTube's the best place. So youtube.com/Jack Lloyd. You can see that scrolling down on there. So I'm going to be leaving that up for a little bit, just to remind people that I'll be able to see your comments best over there. So, hey, what's up, Buddha Bear? Take a look here really quick at whoever's coming in. So welcome. Good to see everybody. And so without further ado, I'm going to be taking a look here at the connection of Rippaverse Isom to a historical character. So just a quick note with Rippaverse and Isom, if you're not already aware, this character is a rancher in the story. So in the Rippaverse, Isom, is someone who's handling animals, has a kind of, I guess you could say, compound where Isom is working out and taking care of ranch-oriented things. So he is definitely having that type of outdoorsy, outside guy kind of character development for his build. And I was taking a look at some potential connections, and in the process, what I found is that there is this man named Isom Dart. And I'm going to go through the Wikipedia page talking about Isom Dart so you get a sense of how these characters maybe have some type of connection. So Isom Dart, he was alive from 1849 to 1900. He was born Ned Huddleston, and he was a rodeo clown and stunt rider, rancher. So there you go, a rancher. Connection there to the actual Isom from Rippaverse. And a horse and cattle rustler during the late 19th century in the Wild West, which, if you know anything about the Wild West, it wasn't really all that wild in terms of, there was just, chaos. It was just, there was more relative freedom. So he changed his name to Isom Dart when he bought a ranch and settled in Browns Park in northwestern Colorado. So it's not Texas here, but again, we're seeing some similarities start to emerge. He was also known by a number of nicknames such as Quickshot and Tanmex. So that's just a little bit about him. And you can see over here, Isom Dart, he has 2 guns in his belt in this picture, which is a very old picture. It's a public domain picture. So you can kind of see him there. He's got that cool brimmed hat. Those are pretty ballin' pistols there. It's hard to see exactly what those makes and models are, but it's, at least from a cursory glance, it almost looks like they're single shot, but it's hard to tell if they're revolvers from this angle. Maybe someone who has a little bit more knowledge on those historical pistols, whether they're black powder single shots or revolvers. But so you have this intriguing name, Isom Dart, right? Very similar to, of course, Isom for the Rippaverse. So let's think about his history and see if there's any other connections. So in the early years, it says in 1849, Ned Huddleston was born into slavery in Arkansas. During the war, when he was 12 years old, Dart was taken to Texas by his master, a Confederate States Army officer, to steal supplies and food for Confederate soldiers. At the end of the war, he was returned to Arkansas and was freed. So there's another connection. So Isom Dart was taken to Texas at one point. Connection to Texas. We have Isom, we have Texas, we have rancher. This is looking really interesting. Westward bound. After he was emancipated, Dart headed west. At some point, he worked as a cook at a railroad construction camp between Green River and Rock Springs of the Wyoming Territory. It was known for the traders, trappers, and hunters of diverse races who passed through the town. Its reputation was also as a town of saloons and outlaws. In a meadow of Green River, he shot the heads off of 5 sage chickens with a 6-shooter. So there you go. He has a 6-shooter, which earned him the name Quickshot. Okay, so this guy is kind of a talented marksman. The incident became one of the tales of his notorious life. He also assumed the nicknames Calico Cowboy, Black Fox, and Tan Mex. So this guy, Isom Dart, is kind of a legend in his own right. He's got this interesting history where he was, in slavery, and then eventually he was freed, and he kind of developed a reputation for himself as being this fast shooter, someone who's a good marksman, and was kind of leading or living a wild west, or not so wild west life out there. Okay, so let's take a look here at what happens next. So after, let's see. Oh, sorry, I got to move it on down. There we go. So Dart worked in Texas along the Texas-Mexico border. Okay, so there you go. Another element of the Texas connection. He worked at the Goodnight Ranch and became a stunt rider and a master horseman. He worked in rodeos as a stunt rider and rodeo clown, but found that he made more money stealing horses and cattle in Mexico, swimming them across the Rio Grande into Texas, and selling them there. He worked with a man named Teresa, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. In 1875, Dart worked with a group of cattle rustlers. They were ambushed, and Dart was the only person who was not killed. So another element of intrigue from Isom Dart's history, his ability to survive. Browns Park. Dart was a member of a cattle drive to the Browns Park area in northwestern Colorado, near the borders with Wyoming and Utah. Due to the lack of law enforcement, the area attracted outlaws like Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch, which meant that ranchers were reluctant to take full use of the open range land. Known until that time as Ned Huddleston, he changed his name to Isom Dart and also spelled Isom, I-S-U-M, and Isom, like I-Z-U-M Dart. Around 1890, he bought a ranch near Browns Park, also called Browns Hole. He fell in love with a Shoshone woman, ran his ranch, and was a bronco buster. He branded the wild horses that he broke with the ID bar. So basically, the Isom Dart bar. After a period of time, he returned to the life of an outlaw, where his life was filled with cattle rustling, fights, and gambling. He joined the Tip Galt gang. He coupled up with Ann Bassett, known as Queen Anne, who was a cattle rustler and operator of the Bassett Ranch. They stole cattle from the two-bar company. J.S. Hoy, a cattle rancher, intended to remove small ranches from the area. His ranch was burned down, and Dart and two other men were charged with the crime. He was taken to a jail north of Steamboat Springs on Hans Peak. He escaped from jail, and having returned to Browns Park, he was not tried for arson. So, wow, this guy really was living quite the wild life and escaped a lot of near-death experiences or incarceration experiences. So that's pretty crazy. All right, the Colorado Range War. The Colorado Range War began by 1899, where large ranchers like the Snake River Stock Growers Association and Two Bar Ranch Cattle Company attempted to overtake smaller ranches and put an end to rustling. They hired Tom Horn, a stock detective and former Pinkerton detective, to intimidate the operators of small ranches. His arrangement included a $500 payment equal to about $16,286 in 2021 for each rustler that was killed. The money would come from the Stockmen's Association dues. Horn assumed the persona of a horse buyer to gain evidence of rustlers, which was found to include Dart. Like other ranchers in the area, Dart received a note asking him to leave Browns Park. Although many of his neighbors left, Dart stayed in his cabin near Cold Spring Mountain Summit near Browns Park. After Matt Rush was killed, Dart invited his friends, including Sam and George Bassett, to stay at his cabin, which he assumed to be safe. Horn shot Dart on October 3rd, 1900. He was killed instantly as he exited his cabin. The Bassetts heard the gunshot but saw no sign of the shooter. Dart was buried in his cabin. Apparently, he was portrayed in a few things like Danny Glover and Hannah's Law. And there's another, television film, Return to Lonesome Dove. So this is kind of interesting. Is there a connection to the historical character Isom Dart with Isom in the Rippaverse? Again, you have a guy who is a rancher, did some stuff around Texas, cattle and horse, rustler, or you could say, someone who manages those animals, sharpshooter, someone, who possibly could be either a descendant of Isom, the modern, Avery Silman, his great ancestor, or maybe Avery Silman is actually taking on the moniker of Isom in adoration of historical figure. So none of this is spelled out in the first issue, in the Isom #1. So this is just speculation and thinking about exactly what his past entailed and what he, got his identity from. But it does seem somewhat compelling. It does seem somewhat compelling that possibly either Avery Silman is a descendant of Isom Dart, a secret descendant, or possibly admires the historical figure and maybe takes that name as his own in admiration of that person. I don't know. What do you think? If you have any ideas or any further information on Isom Dart, definitely throw it down in the comments. If there's anything else you notice in the book that might cross over or hint at that, would love to hear it or see it. But from what I've checked out, what I've seen about the character Isom, of course, real name of the comic, Avery Silman, it seems like there's a lot of connections when you think about it between the locations they were in, the naming, right? The profession taken with being a rancher, obviously both Black. I mean, that's given there. So I don't know. Maybe just maybe we're going to find out in a future issue that Isom either is a direct descendant of Isom Dart, or perhaps he happens to admire Isom Dart and so took on that moniker because he really related with that character. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, Isom's not exactly a common name out there, so it's not something that is very typical, but there is someone who took that name in the past. There is someone who took the moniker of Isom, and even for that person, whose real name was Ned Huddleston, it was their own stage name, just like Isom is the stage name for Avery Silman, who again is, even as it says here on the site, a common rancher, right? We will see. We're going to find out, I think, soon enough. And I'm willing to bet that there's something to that. I think we're going to find out that there's something connecting those two somehow. Whether it's just he knows of that historical figure and decided that he wanted to, take on that similar name just out of admiration or adulation, or who knows, maybe we find out that Isom of Rippaverse, Avery Silman, is actually somehow related to Ned Huddleston, that is Isom Dart. Could be a grandson or a great grandson, could be a grandnephew or a great grandnephew or something like that. I don't know. But there's definitely a lot of common aspects to both Isom of Rippaverse and Isom Dart, the historical figure. So we'll see. We'll see. And Alfonso says, great comic. I've already read it twice. Yep, me too. I did the speed read to kind of like get a sense of it. And I did a slower read, like really slow it down, take a look at all the details to soak it all in. So he says they jump in to get you out. Oh, let's see. It says, did it say a rodeo clown? That'd be a bit of a superhero back in the day. Right. So it says, at least on the Wikipedia form, it says he was a stunt rider and cattle rustler. So he did do those stunts in terms of the quick shot, right? He shot the heads off of 5 sage chickens with a 6-shooter, which earned the nickname Quick Shot. So his lore definitely has that kind of historical superhero or legendary character to it. He's definitely someone who has a lore about him and a lot of kind of interesting close encounters with near-death experiences, or being captured, or escaping capture, from emancipation to being arrested, to being come after by people that didn't like that he was stealing animals. So reasonably so, of course, there. But it really makes you wonder to what extent, if any. I mean, of course, there could be nothing, but I just think that there's too many similarities to just say that there's nothing, right? It's kind of there's just too many things going on to not think that maybe there's something connected there with such a unique name. That's a unique moniker or alias, you could say. Black guy, definitely around Texas, and that arena has some type of special attributes to them. Rancher. I'm just saying, it's all coming together. So we'll find out. But you heard it here, as one of the first to think about this and to think okay, to what extent could Isom, Avery Silman of Rippaverse, be connected to real figures or historical figures, or, kind of either through emulation, adoration, or possibly some genetic family lineage have a connection to that real world character. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think we're gonna find something, probably. I'd have to imagine at this point. So, all right, just want to talk about that real quick, y'all. Thank you so much for dropping by and join the stream. Make sure to like and subscribe for the next little update thing. I think next I'll do a little bit of an overview of the fan art contest now that it's closed. Do my review of some of that art and just see what it is I think would be likely the winners. So maybe we'll do that tomorrow and take a look at those and see which ones really kind of stand up as being probably the ones that would win out of the selection that's made it so far. So, all right, take care, everybody, and I'll talk to y'all later.
Zero State with Jack Lloyd.